It supports keeping Mamdani away from the event. It lists a series of concerns about the 34-year-old politician. Gallant telling the New York Post Mamdani's presence would be hurtful and inappropriate, saying, quote, your objection is based on his public record, his failure to meaningfully acknowledge the horror of that day, and his employment of support for or association with individuals who have minimized 9/11, defended terrorists, or even suggested America deserved the attacks.
So let's get a few things straight about Mamdani before we continue. First, how to say his name correctly since Fox News never seems to be able to do so, but also where he comes from. He was born in Uganda to parents of Indian descent, and then spent some time in South Africa, and then moved when he was 7 years old to New York. And last I checked, none of those countries had anything to do with 9/11. As well, he was only 8 years old when 9/11 actually happened. And let's face it, we wouldn't be having this level of what I'm calling Muslim hysteria that is reminiscent of the W. Bush era if it weren't for the fact that the right and center are terrified and panicking that not only may democratic socialism be popular, it's actually working for the people. Need I say more? And that was just the first 100 days. And thus, we have to speak to another elephant in the room, and that is the Hassan Piker derangement syndrome. The constant push for democratic socialist aligned or adjacent leaders to have to condemn Hassan is a distraction to the deeper both Islamophobia peddling and the distraction from the real momentum the left finally has.
Been made an issue is Hassan Piker, who obviously endorsed Abdul Sayed in Michigan. You've been on his live stream, at least a few times. He's somebody who said, that America deserved 9/11. Now he backed off from that.
Yes, he's apologized.
But he said a lot of controversial things. Is he somebody that should have a role in the progressive movement going forward?
By the way, I would just like to point out, please can some Democrat who's asked about Hassan Piker point out that he was talking about the CIA concept of blowback? I'm so sickened by the fact that it's portrayed like Hassan is like a frothing at the mouth Al-Qaeda supporter who actually wanted the towers to come down and civilians to be killed, when the whole point of his politics is he wants to protect civilian lives. He wants to give people good lives. And so it just drives me crazy that none of the all these Democrats who are peppered with questions about Hassan, they go oh, he apologized and that was a stupid thing to say. But none of them say, well, he was talking about the CIA concept of blowback, about our meddling in the Middle East and what happens as a result of that as a natural consequence, right? That's what he was saying. It just drives me crazy.
I'm right there with you, Kyle. And, sometimes we have to just go to Wikipedia, go to the basics and just remind ourselves what certain definitions are. And indeed, blowback is the unintended consequences and unwanted side effects of a covert operation, etc., etc. And one can find Hassan distasteful and clutch their pearls if they must. But a lot of Hassan's audience are disaffected young men that would otherwise be swallowed up by the red-pilled manosphere, which I can assure you is far more distasteful than a poorly executed satirical comment about CIA blowback. But make no mistake, Hassan has been apologizing for this for nearly a decade, and suddenly these smears are coming out, and I believe that they are in bad faith as a distraction and highly hypocritical, and we need to look no further than to our own president to see what I mean. Yes, let's turn to a more credible way in which our sitting president is dismissing the victims and the victims' families of 9/11. In July of 2024, a class action lawsuit was filed against Saudi Arabia for their responsibility to the victims and the victims' families. And then, in August of 2025, a judge saw that Saudi Arabia could not get that class action lawsuit dismissed. But in July of 2026, Trump signed a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia that, if it goes through, could lead the way for enriched uranium in Saudi Arabia.
They're not ready to make a deal because every time they make a deal, they want to change it.
Even as opposition intensifies at home, Donald Trump is escalating his war with Iran.
We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon.
And yet, to the surprise of many, the president has just done a new nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia.
We're in a war right now with a Middle Eastern country to stop them from enriching uranium. And on the other side, we are now giving another Middle Eastern country the ability to enrich uranium.
So what is Donald Trump up to?
That, along with Trump's other shady dealings with Saudi Arabia, seems pretty dismissive to the victims of 9/11 to me. But there are those that are defending Mamdani's right to be there, including family members of victims of 9/11.
The focus should be on where are we in this world 25 years later.
Elizabeth Miller is now almost as old as her father was when he was killed in the September 11th terror attacks nearly a quarter century ago. She's been attending the annual remembrance ceremony in Lower Manhattan since, where year after year, mayors, presidents, and politicians on both sides of the aisle have paid their respects.
Mayor Mamdani has assured 9/11 families that he wants to be there to honor our loved ones, and I think he should be allowed to do that.
Miller is speaking out after an online petition garnered more than 72,000 signatures from the public, asking ceremony organizers to carefully consider Mayor Mamdani's participation this year. Two petitioners whose spouses were killed in the attacks told CBS News New York's Lisa Rosner last week that their concern stems from the mayor's public positions and rhetoric.
We felt that having Mamdani there would show disrespect to our family members because of the people he supports.
In a statement, September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, which has over 250 members, responded in part, "We strongly condemn the anti-American accusations and Islamophobic sentiment underlying the effort seeking to prevent him from being at ground zero."
Clearly calling for the mayor of New York City to skip the 9/11 memorial because he's a Muslim or because of these guilt by association smears is anti-Muslim bigotry, plain and simple.
The mayor has reaffirmed his commitment to attend.
I will proudly honor the families, the survivors, the first responders forever impacted by that horrific terror attack by standing alongside them.
Miller says she hopes this debate does not overshadow the true reason they're all there.
The focus really shouldn't be on who's there, who's not there. It should be on our loved ones.
And perhaps even more surprisingly, Mamdani's former opponent is even defending his right to be there.
But what is your thoughts on the criticism of him, especially because in a lot of the cases, it's not anything he said, it's an idea of who he is.
Ridiculous. He's the mayor. Stop being sore losers. You knew this is Zoran Mamdani. He was never a fake, phony, fraudulent fugazi like a lot of politicians. He told you who he was. Once he got elected, you should have known he was going to be there at 9/11. Now, if you choose to turn your back on him, I don't want to ever tell family members what they should be doing on this holiday. That's your, not holiday, but this solemn occasion. That's your choice. But I believe you respect the office. He's the mayor. He's representing the city. Unlike what my former friend, Sid Rosenberg, did with Cuomo, that I think stopped him dead in his tracks. I think it was 10 days before the election when they were joking around about what would happen if Mamdani were the mayor on the occasion of 9/11. You know, do you think that there'd be another 9/11? And Cuomo ended up laughing along with that shock jock. I think when you did internal polls, as we did, that really hurt him because he was gaining momentum. Remember, don't vote for Sliwa. A vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani. He was gaining traction, and then he made that stupid remark and then didn't handle it well, and then Zoran exploited the hell out of it, as he should. That was Islamophobic. He's the mayor. Get used to it.
They still can't pronounce his name, but I'm gonna give him this one. Okay, so we can take a small page from Sliwa, who is no leftist, but at the very least he is seeing through the sour grape eaters and some of the Islamophobia that is distracting us from Mayor Mamdani's mission to make New Yorkers' lives better, as well as the real reason why we are there to honor those that were victimized by 9/11. And once again, we see that the right is weaponizing Islamophobia again, as if we have teleported back to the Bush era. But they're cherry-picking it in ways that if it's a Muslim nation that gives Trump a private jet, for instance, not a big deal. But if it is a Muslim that happens to be a democratic socialist that wants to make American lives better, then they are going to be the subject of smears. So just stay vigilant. I'm your host, Lex Voytek. Don't forget to like and subscribe to USDS, and check out your local DSA chapter and get involved. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.